Stay tuned for today's Antidote, brought to you by the Renegade Success Network. Today's Antidote features a healthy dose of thought-provoking insights and information for business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders, and nonprofit professionals. Each day since March of 2020, this program has offered that one thing to help you continue on your own unique pathway to success. And now, Renegades, we bring you Bob Graham and Tom Brush.
Hey, Tom. How are you?
I am well. How are you doing today, Bob?
I'm cold. It is cold out here on the enclosed back porch, and I'm trying to figure out if I can manage it today. So I've got 3 layers. I've got long underwear, a shirt, a long sleeve shirt, and I've got a really heavy, not looking too cool jacket. So I'm dressed for the weather, not for the popularity contest.
Well, sometimes dressing for the weather is more important than the popularity contest.
That's it. Plus, it's getting dark out here. So let me throw a light on. I got it all. There we go. Now you can see me. Look at that.
All right, everyone. For those of you who are not quite certain what you have tuned into, I'm Tom Brush. This is Bob Graham, and this is today's Antidote, our daily Facebook Live where we talk about different things going on in our lives, mostly our business and professional lives, and about how we can find that one thing to help us keep moving forward. So when we're stuck, we might be able to use today's antidote, that one thing, to help us today. Maybe it's tomorrow, and maybe it's, who knows, some other time in the future, but we can add it to our knowledge, experience, and perspective to help us move forward. So today's discussion is about results and what we expect from results. And I think this is an interesting topic because I think that a lot of people look at results a lot of different ways, and there are a lot of different ways to look at results. So what's your thoughts about expectations around results?
Well, it's funny we're talking about this today, Tom, because earlier today I was trying to thanks, Tim, for that insight. Tim suggests that I get a space heater. I'll be much more comfortable. I have a space heater going. It's just not quite making up for the 22 degrees outside. So when we think about expecting results, we anticipate certain things to happen. So let's use the heater. I came out at 6:30 today and turned on the heater. My expectation was that the heater would cause enough heat to be in this room that by 8 a.m. it would be not comfortable, but not freezing cold. I had no proof to suggest that that would work, and so I tested my theory, and the result was, not really what I expected. And so I think that's one of the things with results is we have to test theories. And that's part of what we often don't want to do. We expect because our friend told us he did the same thing and it worked, or because we read a book, or we saw a YouTube video, or we just know deep in our head that, if I do this thing this way, I'm going to get this result. I think we have a lot of false positives. I think we have a lot of times where we delude ourselves into believing something that has absolutely no validity. For instance, why would the heater increase the temperature on my back porch, 45 degrees in 90 minutes? That seems unrealistic when I break it down right now. But last night when I was planning this, I wasn't breaking it down minute by minute, how many degrees per minute, how big the heater was, what the space was. And I think that's where we fall into trouble. We tend to oversimplify things. And I think we also convince ourselves that we'll get the result without doing the work.
Well, and the other thing I would throw in there is, in some ways, expectations are a lot like assumptions, right?
Yeah, sure.
You assume that if I do this, this, and this, I'm going to get this result. And that becomes your expectation. And I think there are just so many variables in there that makes it hard to have expectations. I guess we can hope that this is what the results might be, but we'll never really know until we actually do it, right? So you had an expectation that the heater was going to warm up that room and made an assumption that if you got up at 6, did this, and this, it would be fine. Now you've realized that's not the case. And so does that change your expectations for the future? Does it change the different things you need to do?
It absolutely does. I've got to figure out a better heater. This heater is but here's the thing. This is what we've got to do in our business, Tom. I know it, and talking about the heater is so much easier than talking about business, because when it becomes a business, there's so many more variables. But it's the same process. I need to measure my back porch, figure out those measurements, go into a home improvement store and look for a heater that's going to deal with that square footage. The heater I have is for like a bathroom. Well,
Right.
I don't have a bathroom. I got it because it was cheap. And I set a faulty expectation. I figured the $25 heater would heat my home, my room.
Right.
It was perfectly fine until about a week and a half ago because it wasn't that cold out. But now variables have changed, and I didn't plan for the long term, but I expected the same result. What worked when it was 40 degrees, so it should work when it's 22 degrees. Well, not quite.
Well, and there's lots of other things that could go into that, right?
Yes.
Could be like, how well is that room insulated? And so you might be talking to somebody at a store where they're like, oh yeah, this will work perfectly for a 12 by 12 room. Great. Well, did I tell you that it's a 12 by 12 room that's outside and is probably not insulated? And there's probably some areas where the windows aren't as sealed as I would like. And I think that's typically the case. For example, we've sent out a bunch of emails, as people may have noticed, in the last few days. And so there's some tracking software that just understands like who's opening and who's clicking and who are making these actions that we feel would be beneficial to help us figure out if we're sending out the right information, if we're sending it to the right people, all of those type of things. And I think we have an expectation of what the results are going to be. And I find that many times the results don't live up to the expectations, because typically the expectations are higher. I guess sometimes they could be really lower than what we expect. And I guess that's all just about thinking that something is that we can guess what's going to happen in the future.
Well, maybe the question, Tom, is if we were to right size our expectations, would that change how we would act going forward? So if I were to send out an email to 1,000 people and I expect that 10% of those people will open that, if I were more realistic and it was only 3%, would that cause me not to send that email? If I went to a networking event and met 10 people and those 10 people never became customers, would that discourage me from ever going to that networking event anymore? If I were to have a client who was a different demographic than my typical demographics, and that person didn't pay me, would that cause me to no longer work with that demographic?
Well, it might, depending on how you look at it. I think if you believe that you're going to get the same results, if you expect the same results every time you do the same type of thing, then yeah, you might not do those actions again because they didn't deliver the results that you had. And I think that oftentimes our expectations not limit, but stop us from continuing to do something that might work out really well. You could be going along in your business and you've done all this marketing and networking and all these things for 6 months. And you're like, it's just not working. I expected that within 6 months, my business would be up and running and it would be going great and I would be in really good shape. Well, maybe in the way that you're operating, it's going to take 9 months. And so do we give up?
Or 18.
Or 18, right. Do we give up because it hasn't met our expectations? Or do we maybe have to think about how do we look at this differently, knowing that it might take longer than we think? And I think that's the part of it. I think we usually set expectations so high that there's almost no way we're going to get the results that we were thinking we were.
Which would suggest to me the self-sabotage theory.
Sure.
That if we set it such a high bar and we don't achieve it, there you go. I failed, darn it. And the funny thing is, I was looking at some research a couple of years ago when I was working on a different book, and there's a great piece of research that shows that a number of small businesses closed within weeks of when they would have hit success. Mm-hmm. They looked at small businesses that had done RFPs and gone through that process, and the small businesses bailed and shut down right before they were going to get a government contract or a big contract that would have moved them into a whole different strata. And the researcher was really clear that we often shorten the amount of time that we think it'll take to achieve a result. And we also don't accurately depict in our minds the good things we're doing. We focus more heavily on the things that aren't going right as opposed to those that do go right, which is why we have all these people suggesting that we be more grateful. Because gratitude is a chance for us to say, hey, that worked really well. I'm really thankful that I get to deal with Tom every morning. It sets my day up versus, oh my God, I could be up at 8 o'clock every morning. Here it is, a snow day. I could have totally slept in, and I'm doing this thing with Tom. What was I thinking? Those are two perspectives on the same situation. One fuels growth and opportunity. The other pretty much shuts a door on any potential opportunity. And I think we do that all the time. When we focus on results, that's when we start shutting doors.
Well, I think that, yes. I think also that when we have expectations of results and then the expectations aren't met, we now think that we did something wrong. And you know how I feel about that.
Right.
I think that, no, not right, that it's real. Sorry. And I think that's the thing. Like someone might say, like there's a question in the group that says, is 18 years enough? And one of my coaches' favorite phrase is, it depends. Depends on what you've done and how you've done it and how you've pivoted and adjusted. And there is no right answer to how long it's going to take for your business to take hold. Because it's going to be different for everyone. What is real for each of us is different. And so the results we are going to get are going to be different. So we still have to pay attention to the results. Just our expectations of results might need to change so that we don't get into self-sabotage, frustration, overwhelm, and just decide to give up.
Let me put a comment up there, Tom. This is from John Cerisi. Good morning, John. I think to reach out for assistance. Maybe marketing is not a talent we have. It is true many of us expect the results will happen quicker than it actually does. And I wasn't thinking about it until I just read John's comment. Marketing seems to be one of those areas where we expect results that are unrealistic. Like, oh, I did Facebook ads all weekend and I don't have more customers. And Facebook ads work really well if you have the right things lined up. If you're just plodding around on a Thursday afternoon and go, I'm going to run 4 days of ads because it's Super Bowl weekend and it's going to work really well, I can tell you from personal experience, not so much.
Maybe it will, right? It's so hard to determine because the factor in it is we don't control the results.
Right.
So why do we try to control the expectations?
So what's that one thing, Tom? We're at that point.
I just think that, to me, expecting things is thinking that there is something that is right. And I'm just not sure there's anything that's right. It's just real. And so if we stop having, or we don't let expectations drive us or the results that we get, that we allow them to be what they are, and we figure out how to move forward So when we're thinking about what to expect, you might want to say, it would be great to get a 10% return on this open rate, on this email that I sent. That would be great. And if it doesn't happen, okay, what have I learned from it? What might I do differently? And how can I move forward? Not, the email must have stunk. This must be wrong. Yes, that could be true. And it might also be true that the timing wasn't right. The message wasn't right. The people just chose not to open it.
Right. They got distracted by a snowstorm.
There's nowhere to plan or have expectations of that's going to happen.
So that would suggest that we have to have our own compass that guides us, regardless of what these things are, that we're focused on what we're trying to do. And while these things can be big distractions to us, we have the ability to not allow them. Like I shared with you over the weekend, some feedback that got from one of our viewers, and we considered it, but clearly we didn't knee-jerk and completely change the whole program because of that one piece of feedback. We could have, some might argue we should have, but we have a sense of what we're trying to achieve, and we believe that we're doing what we believe is right. Doesn't mean we're right or wrong. What we think is best.
Or real.
So hard. Or real. Yeah, exactly. So,
because I think we get into
language gets me.
Well, and I think when we get into the could have, should have, would have, that's heading you down the path to self-sabotage. Yes. And I think that the more we can get away from that and just maybe just not temper our expectations, just take our expectations for what they are. An idea about what might happen. Doesn't make it, it's just real, just what it is.
Okay. So why don't you wrap us up here, Tom? We'll get done, let people go out. If they're on the East Coast, they can go out and play in the snow and ice and try to do work in a weird day.
And you can warm up because it seems like that's what you want to do.
I am out here for the day regardless. So.
All right. Well, everyone,
that's what's real.
Thanks so much for joining us today on today's edition of Today's Antidote. If you enjoyed this conversation or you had one other thing that you wanted to share, put it in the comments below. So whether you're watching this live or you're watching on a replay, we'd love to hear what your one thing is about results and expectations around results. And we'll be talking about results all week. So if you're enjoying this conversation, please join us in the Ring of Renegades Facebook group. If you are not already a member, it's easy. You just go to Facebook, search for Ring of Renegades. It's a private group because we have a community of people who are trying to help one another figure out how to take the next step on their own unique pathway to success. So you just have to ask to join and then tell us why you're a renegade. And you can become a part of this growing community of business leaders, owners, professionals trying to help themselves and others move forward. So we will see you inside the Ring of Renegades Facebook group, or we will see you tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Eastern time for our next edition of Today's Antidote. Have a great day, everyone, and we will see you soon. Are you struggling to make your vision a reality? Are you stuck and don't know what to do next? Are fear and doubt holding you back? The Renegade Success Network will help you determine the next steps on your pathway. Here is some of what you will get. Create your pathway call to start you on a better path. Unlimited laser solution sessions to keep you from getting stuck. Nurture your network events to build your network with other successful leaders. Monthly Renegade challenges to prepare you for what lies ahead. The Renegade Success Vault, giving you access to videos, tools, and tips on specific topics anytime you need them. And the Renegade Success Network community, an exclusive Facebook group of like-minded renegades, all working towards achieving their goals.
You have a choice. Do it yourself and fumble forward slowly and alone. Or join the Renegade Success Network and be part of a community built to help you find your own pathway. Join today at renegadesuccessnetwork.com. Act now and jumpstart your journey on your own pathway to success.